Stefania, and we are ready for a great panel discussion about fintech and AI, particularly during the time of COVID-19 and this pandemic that has basically disrupted the current system and the current institution, from the government, to the financial institution, to all the economy and society. So I have some great speakers, some disruptors in the industry, and I would like them to quickly introduce themselves, what they do, and also what is actually happening and the need for a change. Kamilė, do you want to start?
Yes. Hi, my name is Kamilė Valatkaite. I actually very recently joined Western Union as a manager of General Counsel Office at the Digital Legal Division. And it starts actually the chain reaction from this new position, where we actually support the lawyers who are working with our internal stakeholders towards the bigger goals, towards the innovative products and services that facilitates the global movement of money. And through this global movement of money, Western Union enables individuals, communities, and companies to fulfill the development and potential and support the whole economic growth.
Okay, Kamilė, thanks. Craig?
Yeah, sure. Hi, guys.
Grant from Bankera.
So I'm Craig Grant. I am Vice President of Partnerships. And what my main role at the moment, especially during this pandemic, is being able to identify customers and corporate clients, private clients who are struggling to essentially get bank accounts within the global economy at the moment. Our background for Bankera is mainly we come from an e-wallet basis. So we have a previous company that was in cryptocurrency, SpectroCoin, and the idea was that we realized there were so many unbanked customers that were struggling to get European accounts. And we leveraged our relationship with our banks and are now able to offer these customers an opportunity, assuming they're regulated, they're licensed, and their entities are all above board. We can offer them a better opportunity to at least touch that, that challenger bank situation. We have other products as well, but mainly for me, my role is to build the partnerships and to give our customers the best opportunity to develop their business, whether it's new payment methods, whether it's card acquiring, it's a host of different things.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Do we have still some other panelists? They are waiting to join, but let's kick off discussing what you just said about the financial situation and economy, and this is where also Bankera comes in. We have seen this situation with the COVID-19 has resulted in basically a recession, right? So the richer, they're gonna get rich, and the poorest, the one they were in the middle, they're gonna get poor. So it's actually creating a very big imbalance. And what everybody's talking about is there a way that fintech and new technology can play a role to kind of delete or maybe improve this kind of inequality and give opportunity also for people the unbanked, or for the biggest population that is not the richest? Craig,
definitely.
Go on.
Sure. I think from our perspective, where we're having talks internally and about the whole banking project is that when it comes to companies that are maybe higher risk, so like a gambling operator or a Forex trader, a lot of the banks are going to be tightening their restrictions. They're going to be tightening everything. There's going to be less lending. There's going to be less, risk. For us, because we're a smaller company, we're actually seeing the opposite. We're seeing a boost in our applications, albeit we recently launched our wallet, which is obviously gained a lot of traction in the market. What we're finding is that customers are coming to us and they're perfectly legal, they're perfectly above board, but they're struggling to get through compliance through some of the brick and mortar banks. For us, we've hired more and more AML officers, compliance officers. We're building out our teams in order to handle the increase in volume. But ultimately, where I see us being able to help, and not just us, but a lot of the challenger banks, is being able to give a more seamless customer experience, being able to ask questions in a different way, be a lot more user friendly rather than just compliance versus sales. We want to try and blend the two together. And I think one thing that was really interesting is loans. So a lot of companies are obviously struggling during the pandemic to pay their suppliers.
Yeah.
We noticed that. We got approached by a few companies. So we actually decided to run a hackathon and build essentially a business loans product. And by doing that, what we're saying is we're going to be able to give a really good interest rate. We'll be able to do onboarding and split the finances between the supplier and the operator. So for example, like a dentist has to buy suppliers chairs and things like that. If they can't pay their invoice because they've got no business coming in, it's not just the dentist that goes out of business, it's the suppliers, it's the manufacturers. So it's a whole knock-on effect. And what we think we can able to do is to offer these type of customers an opportunity to stay alive, basically a lifeline that the banks may not lend to them because they don't have the money anymore and the income and the revenue.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting service. Camille, Western Union is dealing with things and obviously probably has been quite a challenging time for your company as well. How did you see the pandemic affecting the business, and what kind of new solution have you came up to kind of help people?
I would like to speak more of the shift and of the change, what was actually happening. That it's difficult to deny today that the shift of the fiat to digital money, and pandemic actually increased this change. And today the world, actually global economy, needs those payments instruments that would be fast, that would be less expensive, and without unnecessary intermediaries. So from Western Union perspective, we already have this year's first quarter results, and it shows that digital money transfer revenues increased by 21%. And those services are provided just in quite few countries, and it shows very different change. So if we would, let's say, assume that more and more countries that would be increasing that change, that would help make the change during this crisis. And how it could help, it could be an acceleration tool that would increase the volumes and even increase the GDP, which was sharply fallen due to coronavirus pandemic. And there are quite a few different levels. If from the country perspective, from the global perspective, and from each of us, like as our personal finance. And what was happening, trending, in a Google search during the March period, that term financial help increased by 203%. Another important thing is that the apps and the solutions being downloaded related to finances increased by 31%. And what it says that during the pandemic, actually not everybody was cared about that health and safety, but everybody is interested about financial stability and financial well-being. So, and even myself, I was really happy when one day on the radio I heard the advertisement of one of the biggest banks, which was supporting the support and empathy in the situations and understanding of the end customers' needs and worrying during these times. So yes, going back to the money and the solutions, then what's happening in the whole world. So yes, China is already testing the digital yuan, and Sweden already trying the e-krona, and we have some promises to get results by the end of this year from Libra Association. But I would like to turn everybody's attention to the end customers, to each of us who is using the money and those solutions. And we, the ones gonna be who will be making those decisions. And what is important by creating those services and products, it's to be aware that they would be safe, secure, built with the trust, and of course that additional advantages would be related to that financial stability.
Yeah, so that's quite a very good overview, but also I think both of you have seen kind of like a positive, let's not call a positive impact, but we have seen the pandemic just kind of pushing the digital currency and the new technology more into the traditional system. How do you see the role of cryptocurrency now? I mean, Bitcoin has performed quite well over this time, and now the same as other cryptocurrency. Do you see them being implemented more and more into today people transaction? Craig, what's your view from Bankera?
I actually don't deal with the cryptocurrency as a general rule. Yeah. I deal more from the payments and finance side. Yeah. However, I'm an active user of Bitcoin and some of the more stable currencies. I'm finding that once the wider audience adopt it and it has a real value from an operational standpoint, I think that's when companies like us are going to really benefit from having a wallet that can allow people to use and store their cryptocurrencies, but also use it to buy things. So an example would be a crypto-backed loan business. We can offer crypto-backed loans with very good collateral, good loan to value, and by doing that, people who are just testing the water with crypto, they may hold it and they don't really want to spend it at the moment, so they can actually pull it up as collateral to get euros or dollars or pounds for that collateral and pay it back over a certain period of time. And I think that until the retail stores widely accept the cryptocurrency, I think it's tough for them to really take place versus the fiat currency. I don't know about Kamilė, how you've noticed the difference in digital currencies. For us, we have it as an option. We have an exchange, but I really focus on the payment side of things. So for me, it's I haven't noticed much of a difference between post COVID-19 and pre COVID-19.
Thank you, Craig. Now we have another speaker, another panelist here joining us. So Erja from Nasdaq Nordic, is that correct? Erja? Hello? Okay, so we are having some technical issues, but Kamilė, let's go back to you. So Craig said they didn't see kind of like a change, a shift, let's say, into the adoption of cryptocurrency. What do you see? Have you seen from your perspective?
My point was a bit different. I was talking in general that we noticed like the increase of the digital currency, the usage of that. In general, I'm myself personally, I'm a fan of cryptocurrencies and do a believer in that. So just what another thing is, if those all solutions will be secure and safe to use, I think it's not going to be matter of like pandemic of the certain situations. It's going to be like general race of the solution that like a general phenomenon which was happening previously with, let's say, credit cards.
Yeah. One other point to mention is definitely the importance of data and how those data can be really valuable in order to serve people, with the banking system, with the ability to make payments. And surely this kind of data, the ability to reach out and gather data now is much more easy than it was before. I mean, we have seen with the COVID-19, how data is being used for, for some, information, and some data has just been taken and they said, why, this is justified actually because we are talking about the public health. How do you see data? How do you see the way that data is being used and treated during the pandemic? Do you think that was done in the right way? Do you think there was some issue about data privacy? What do you think, Kamilė? You want to expand?
Data is very important before, during pandemic, and now. And the tools to navigate all the data in the right view, I think it's been affected in the finance sector and especially in the banks. And most of the tools that have been used to get through lots of information, and starting with the rating models and early warning systems and the liquidity models, and in general the market risk approaches and regulatory models, they've been hit. The numbers wasn't showing the right ones, and it got into this balance. And what it is important, I think, in the next steps, that artificial intelligence and experts who are working in that area should be utilized, creating the new tools that would help and provide new mechanisms for the future. And maybe we're not going to guess the best results, but at least we can get the best probabilistic conclusions for the future cases. And in addition to that, it would help for these risk management tools, but also for the new solutions, for the identification, for quick validation, credit checks. And there are quite few startups that are working on those solutions, and the same small and medium and big companies, I think, should utilize it.
Thanks. Craig, how are you using and dealing with data at Bankera? What's the value that data have for your company?
I think from a standpoint of two separate things. You've got personal customers, which has a different set of data in terms of the customer behavior, the consumer behavior. And then you have the other side, which is the corporate data. So how a corporate company is able to survive in this environment. So I'll touch on the personal one first of all. I think it's important to understand, I use an example of, we used to go out for dinner a few times a week pre this COVID-19. And now, is the consumer behavior going to be, even when restaurants reopen, are you going to be going out for dinner as much as you did, or would you potentially just go around to your friends' houses and have home cooked meals, or get a takeout, things like that? And the reason I bring that up is, again, it's the same about data. In any industry, whether it's fintech, whether it's retail, whether it's finance, that data is crucial. But the data given now is having a very different impact as to data that was, say, 6 months ago, when we were going out and buying cars, when we were going to concerts and movie theaters and things like that. So I think from Bankera's point of view, we're finding that the data that we're collecting is allowing us to kind of build a plan to attack this virus, to attack the world. And I guess we want to be in a position where we can help people if this was to happen again. I'm sure that there's people out there that think that it will happen again. And I think from a data point, that we rely on that data in order to progress as a company and build new products. I think from a corporate point of view, I guess we haven't really seen much of a difference between corporate customers applying prior to like January, February versus customers that are applying now for accounts. It's the same industries, it's the same businesses. We're just seeing more of a desperate need for alternative payment methods and alternative banking options. I think that's where the data is going to really help. You know, myself, with Kamilė, again, you know, with Western Union, I think it's important that, you know, you can't share data, but I think the more data that you can collate over a shorter period of time, I think it's going to tell and wake up a lot of companies into how they need to adapt their operations, whether it's from a compliance aspect, a risk aspect, whether it's purely a marketing or sales aspect. You know, what type of clients do you want to market to now? For us, it's 100% opened up new categories. You know, shipping companies, even, you know, basic things like provisions and stuff like that. When you're looking to pay suppliers in, say, outside of Europe, but you're a European distributor, being able to send those funds fast and immediate and at the lowest FX rate, that's all data that we're collecting now, and we're understanding that these are clients who are, you know, if you could save them a few basis points on a Forex exchange, or you could save them a few percent on a paying an invoice, it's going to help those businesses to survive. And I think that's the data that we're collecting and the data we're seeing. That's how we're going to be able to build a better future for everybody.
Thanks, Craig. I think that was really crucial what you said about using the data in order to better to analyze the situation and being able to offer the right services when the same situation comes. But it's also come down to the thing, I'm analyzing the data in the right context, you know, because this is the main point, is the ability to come up with the right analytics. So now we have our panelists back. So Erja from the Nasdaq Northing. Is that okay, Erja?
Erja, but it's close enough.
Hello,
everyone.
Sorry about
Can
it's
you
my
hear
Italian
me?
accent. Welcome. Yep. And we were just discussing about the importance of data and the analysis of data, particularly in this critical time like the pandemic. Do you have anything you want to add on these topics?
Well, I think, I mean, in our business, data is everything. So it's crucial. And we, of course, I mean, we invest a lot in different kinds of way to analyzing it and reusing the information we receive. And during these times, I think data protection and security, information security is becoming important. I mean, it's in our core, of course, to the type of business. But nowadays, I think, I mean, we all have to invest more into avoiding difficult situation and guaranteeing that everything is in a safe place.
Kamilė, do you have anything to add on this? Because you are dealing, you know, with the people data and you know, sensitive data, but also, you know, you are trying to use them to kind of improve your offering. So how do you protect them?
We need to start with a culture of compliance and understanding from the bottom to the top of the employees, trainings to build the teams, use the right software for the protection, because it's not of the question that does this apply or it doesn't. The protection of the data, especially the personal data, it's very, very important. It's one of the most important things. And then it depends on the company which you choose, if you're going to do it internally or you're going to outsource. And just what is increasing another standards for the within financial sector, that even you decide to outsource certain tools, you have to be, you still are responsible for you taking the responsibility. Even you have a supplier to do something for you, you're still responsible for that protection. And the last thing is that when building new solutions, it's very important to have in the team somebody who's understanding the sensitive areas and which would be important to consider, because I've been myself in the situations like where building certain new solutions and the coders already have something, but it needs to be redone due to lack of certain compliance and to meet certain regulations.
Okay. Erja, we have been talking about banking, particularly with Craig, that is the vice president of Bankera, and the future of banking, how banking is going to be disrupted, and the new things, the innovative aspect as well. I just wanted to pick up your brain on that and see where you see the future of banking headed to.
Well, of course, as you said, the ecosystem will change eventually, but I think also the banks, especially in the Nordics, they are quite innovative, and they want to continue being strong players within the community. And I would say that they just banks and brokers, they find new ways to improve their efficiency, and also to provide their customers, both private and company customers, new ways of getting finance and supporting them. So I think the role of banks is changing, but they don't disappear totally.
Yeah, and one of the things that also Craig briefly mentioned was about funding options. So obviously with the COVID-19, we have seen lots of loan given out to companies and individual, but at the same time, funding is going to become a critical issue, particularly with the recession coming up. Where are you standing on that? From your perspective, Erja, what do you think is the big challenge, and what could be the solution?
Well, from our perspective, of course, I mean, this has been a bit more quiet year for listings, or not so much activity compared to a couple of years back. But in general, we are keeping up a good pace. So there are still new companies entering the markets, public markets, and raising capital there. I mean, just last week we had a smaller company from biotech sector, and they raised on our secondary market, or our growth market, almost 90 million euros, and their revenue last year was something like 45,000 euros. So there is room for startups which have good products, good innovative ideas in their hands. And then on the other hand, I think from at the exchange on the public sector, we can see that secondaries, the share issues, already listed companies are now arranging. So those are picking up. And then companies are also using different kinds of instruments, financial vehicles. So it's like bonds and, as you mentioned, loans and all that. So I think there will be a variety of different instruments. So it's not just the ones you used to have. And also in the Nordics, crowdfunding has been very popular. So I think this is also their time to make it happen again.
Craig, do you want to add anything on there about the instruments?
Sure. I was going to say, Erja just touched on something interesting about the crowdfunding, and I had a conversation with a few friends about this actually, in similar industries to me. I think what's happening is some people have still got money to spend. Albeit people are being more cautious in certain aspects. So maybe, people aren't investing into airlines at this moment in time because they don't know how airlines are going to come out of this. But I see it as the opposite. I see it as opportunity. I think that when it comes to the crowdfunding, if you can get into a startup early on for less money, and a startup that you believe is going to benefit people in the future, I think that's the great opportunity. We're missing out on that right now, because some people are hesitant. Other people are like, well, I've got this disposable income because I'm not going to dinner every night. I'm not spending money in shopping centres and malls on clothes. So I've got to spend this money on something. I'm pulling it away in savings anyway. Why don't I go and invest in startups and obviously in established companies like an Amazon, for example. I know that everyone wants to be involved in Amazon. Ultimately, I've probably used more Amazon shipping over the last 3 months than I've done ever in my life, because I'm not going to risk going out unnecessarily and half the stores are closed. So I think it all comes back to consumer behavior. No one really knows how consumer behavior is going to change. It's already changed, but we don't know, will it go back? Will people decide to, in a year's time, they'll go back and think, what on earth was going on? Like 2020 just sucked. And, 2021 is back to normal. You're not wearing masks, you're going out and socializing. And I think the companies that will survive this are the ones that are innovative, whether they're fintech or whether they're brick and mortar HSBC or if they're, as you said, a biotech company. If you've got a reason to grow in this market, you can grow in any market. And I think that's really, it touches me there, when we just want to help everybody. We're not here to, all of us on this panel and then everyone at home, we're here to help and guide people and give people the best chance in life. And if that means helping with crowdfunding, or that means solving an issue with a regulated entity that can't get a bank account because they've lost all their revenue for 2020, let's try and help them. Let's get together and build products that we can all utilize and use together.
I think that was a great comment. And you touch about, the airlines, you touch about a few other industry. Kamilė, I would like to see what you think about the main industries that have been disrupted by the coronavirus pandemic, and which one you think that he has to kind of evolve quickly than others?
The hardest and the most noticeable, of course, is traveling and the hotels and going somewhere. Even this conference is supposed to be happening in Tallinn, and we should meet live and go out and everything. And this industry had the most, and it's sad for the industry, as it will have to take. It's gonna take a few years to recover. And another thing is it's like global problem, but it's a problem for each of us, because we don't even know how to plan our holidays and how we're gonna travel this or next year. So
yeah, definitely. Craig, you want to add anything? You mentioned Amazon.
I was just about to say, with Camille's point about booking things. So for us, there's conferences in Malta in November, a big gambling conference, a gaming conference that we want to attend. Now, how do I go and book flights and hotels not knowing if A, I'm going to be able to travel, what are the travel restrictions in and out of Malta, and B, who is actually going to be at the conference? Because if there's any risk of a second wave or anything like that, I struggle to understand how people are going to want to risk going to a closed conference. And I take it one step further. February the 4th to the 6th this year was ICE, which is a big gaming conference. A lot of slot operators from America come over. There's obviously hundreds and thousands of people that come over. I was there, and 3 weeks later we're in lockdown. That, to me, it happens so fast that I think, companies that especially in the fintech environment and in the payments and finance, they've had to adapt extremely quickly to increase volume. You've got more customers sending money, so you've got more customer complaints because there's money that's not being arrived.
That's a good point you mentioned about complaints, because coming back to your example of flights, let's say, fine, I'm just going to book some flight, and then if it doesn't go ahead, I'm going to cancel it. But then on the other end, is the hotel is going to refund my money? How long is going to take? Is the airline doing that, or is giving me a voucher, which maybe I don't know where I'm going to use? I think this kind of conversation about how you can do a refund, how you can look after the customer if these things is not happening. So maybe this kind of uncertainty is kind of creating problems and maybe stopping people to do something that otherwise they would have done.
I think also you've got an example of so weddings. A lot of people have had to cancel or postpone their weddings so later on in the year. A prime example would be I have the wedding in Australia in September. I have my flights booked, have my hotels booked. I can't get a refund at the moment because technically speaking, we're not in refund territory because we're only in June. So I need to wait until July, August time and then determine if, you know, I won't name the airlines, but if they decided that they're not going to travel those routes, then yes, they're going to give me a refund. But if I can't turn around and say, oh, sorry, my plans got cancelled, so I need to cancel my flight, they don't care. It's not, you know, they're not going to refund me. So I think it's also having an effect on everybody. It's not just the airlines. It's the people that were utilizing the airlines for a specific purpose rather than a business travel. They're being hit really hard as well. So I think it's about understanding it from. It's not just one individual that gets affected by this. It's a whole chain of, you know, domino effect. There could be 7 different people involved in one transaction. And I think that's where, you know, especially fintech companies, that's where we need to be able to talk into our customers. It goes back to the data that you mentioned. We need to collate as much information and learn from this so this never happens again.
Yes, yeah. And then we have seen 2 sectors they are doing pretty well, which is technology and healthcare, because they kind of been riding on the hype and on the disruption that's been created by COVID-19. I mean, we have seen all the Nasdaq company, the big tech company, they're all going up. Amazon, as you mentioned, is one of them. Zoom is another one that's got a massive, a massive upside, and the market cap is just boom up. Maybe Erja, do you want to add anything about the healthcare sector? As you mentioned, you saw some activities on the Nasdaq Nordic. Do you think something is going to stay? I mean, because lots of healthcare companies have just been put onto they try to find a solution, and, you know, lots of kind of hype on there, but is that sustainable, or, you know, it's just going to collapse after the COVID-19 is gone?
No, I don't think so. Healthcare, biotech, pharmaceuticals, it's a business for patient investors. So the death valley is quite long. You could compare that to also like opening up a mine or setting up a game studio. I mean, you don't know what is there in the end of the tunnel. So it's really you wait and see, and then what comes out, that's the product. But I would say that, I mean, both in US on Nasdaq and here in the Nordics, I mean, during these first 5 months, the majority of the companies have been actually coming from the healthcare sector. So that's for true. But then it in a way differs. That in US they are more financial and consumer related companies, instead of here in the Nordics we have industrial and technology and all that. So I think it's either the hype or something that the win will be there in the future, or it will ease off overcoming some obstacles like COVID now. But then on the other hand, I think investors are also interested in companies and innovations which are comprehensive. They understand what they are investing into.
I think that's a point, is it can't just be try to find a solution to the COVID-19. It's trying to develop a product to look after patient, and because the PPE, for example, is a big example that I think is gonna carry on, because I think now people and any kind of industry is more conscious and aware they have to use protection equipment. I mean, for worldwide.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the companies you see now entering the public market, they have started their processes long way before we knew about Corona, so 2 years, a year and a half ago. And it's just for some of those, it might be a good timing. But then on the other hand, as said, there are so many question marks. But what is fact, there is capital available. And now the challenge is really to combine or to connect the projects and the money.
Okay. There is a question I wanted to ask about countries, and where do you see the best opportunities for disruption? Which you think are the most advanced country that you think they can kind of lead or leapfrog thanks to fintech? Kamilė, do you maybe have some thought about it?
If to talk about the startups, I welcome everyone to Lithuania because here is a very great ecosystem. So yes, but globally, I think now it becomes doesn't matter. And if you have a great solution, then is actually just make it work, make it a secure solution that would work for everyone. So then it doesn't really matter in which market.
Craig, do you have any specific comments you want to make? Maybe, I don't know, the country that you have been serving more recently, or if you see any kind of particular opportunity?
I think it's hard for me personally to put a specific country up because we're having applications from all around the world. Essentially, any country that isn't on a sanctioned list, we're able to talk to. Now, we can't obviously necessarily give everyone an account, but I think South America, I think is certainly an opportunity that a lot of fintech companies, especially us, are looking into in more detail. I think you've got Brazil, there's a lot of payment methods, a lot of opportunity there. Venezuela, again, it's they want to build a cryptocurrency as their main currency, and I think that where we're seeing, as long as we can, and this goes back to compliance, as long as we can identify who the UBO is, we can identify that they're in a regulated industry, that they have their, they filed a tax return, for example, in the last 12 months in the jurisdiction that they're in. I think that's when we can have talking points and kind of understand their business. Europe is pretty covered during the pandemic, I would say. I don't think much has probably changed in the way of technology in Europe, but I think definitely Latin America, South America, Africa's one that I'm fascinated by. I just, it's very tough to work with entities in Africa because it's just unknown. Unfortunately, we don't have the infrastructure through our compliance and AML teams to be able to handle the volume, and therefore it's something that I'm really interested in, and I wish someone could come up with some kind of solution to help bank the unbanked, as you say.
Yeah.
But ultimately, country-wise, I think we've seen, all applications from all over. I would like to touch on one thing really briefly. You mentioned Zoom.
Yeah.
So I was using Zoom pre-coronavirus. Zoom has been, it's blown up. Like it's, everyone is using Zoom, whether it's to do a virtual conference, whether it's to do a virtual call with your friends and your family, to do quiz nights on a Tuesday, or Taco Thursday. People were doing things like that. And Zoom struggled because of the privacy issues. Now, I don't really understand much about the privacy issues. I didn't really look into it, to be honest with you. I know that anything I put online is public now. So for me, the privacy issues is not, it's up to the companies how they handle it. But I wonder if the way that Zoom have dealt with it, there's so many other companies that have also been hit and blown up because of COVID. And I think that it's about how they handle it and move forward as opposed to just being reactive. I think people need to be proactive now. Yeah. The days of being a reactive compliance or a reactive sales is like you need to be proactive.
I think this is a point because they were just having kind of standard security measures, and then when all this thing came out, they actually realized how important was data and sharing the links, get the participant into the webinar. It was all has to be done in a much more safer and secure way, and they are trying to, but I don't think. At the moment, I think they implement some measures. They are still only available for paid users. But then if you see the results they put out, they came up with quite a big statement that is justifying their market cap going from 12 billion to 64 billion. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy the jump they've made. but it was a very good observation because it's an important case. And another thing is obviously cybersecurity, which is another big thing. And maybe Erja, you wanna expand a little bit more on this topic, because I know there are lots of security companies that are looking at the Nasdaq Nordic as well for listing as a good market, to support their business.
Yeah, I think listing on our venues, it really gives companies more muscles when they are thinking about becoming bigger and more international. So it's like a quality stamp for the companies. They have gone through a certain pressure, and then there is more visibility and more transparency among these companies. But if we go back to the fintech company team, so I think there is one global trend that when there is a great globally interesting idea or business idea, and then it gets more established, so normally then there are the big boys entering the market also, and they buy out the company. So I think we have seen lots of these very brilliant fintech startups, or more than startups, and then they are bought by some global big player. So I think that's a universal trend nowadays.
So in light, to just wrap it up, in light of everything that happened with the COVID-19, what do you think are the key takeaways for businesses to bear in mind? Kamilė, do you want to maybe kick off with that?
Yes, but I would like to go back to that Zoom question, and what was the most important thing that when there is certain solutions that you can pay it with your data, or you can pay with your currencies. So our data is one of the kind of values that we kind of purchase certain things. So in general, I think it's very important to choose for yourself what is acceptable for you, and which kind of currency you would like to use, your data, and how it would be protected later on, and which kind of money you would like to use.
Okay, thanks. Craig, what are your takeaways from this coronavirus situation?
I think it's know your customer in different aspects. I think it's know your customer from a compliance and know your customer from a personal standpoint. You need to know what they're looking for, what are their struggles, how can you help them to get through this. And I think as Kamilė said, compliance is the bread and it's everything for every company. If you don't have a good compliance structure, you don't have a good base, it's very hard to be able to service those clients. So I think my takeaway from everything that's happening is just know your customer, know what you can do to help.
Okay, thank you so much. Erja, do you want maybe to wrap it up with your thought on this?
Well, I think during these very peculiar days and times, I think the companies should just look forward. I mean, this is what it is, and you can't really make the difference out of it. But then, I mean, looking to the future and seeing that what's available there, that's maybe one action that might bring them over the bad times. And then on the other hand, I think also companies should remember that there are no quick wins. So even though, I mean, play it safe.
Okay, thank you so much. We still have 1 minute and 20 seconds. Is there anything else that you want to add before we close?
From my side, it's more to say thank you for hosting this panel and giving us the opportunity to discuss in an unknown. I've definitely taken a lot of value from this conversation, especially with what Erja, Kamilė and you, Stefania, have said. So I appreciate that.
Craig, thank you so much. So thank you, everybody, and I wish you all the best and stay safe.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Bye. Thanks.